Hello epic viewers, brace yourself for sheer epicness, because today my review of the X-Men Marvel Legends Wave 1 is about to commence. This action figure series is slated to be released come July of 2016. Am I looking forward to the prospect of procuring these figurines, or do I think that these figurines are abysmal in every facet? Let's find out. Without further ado, without further delay, without further procrastination, let's delve into the nitty-gritty of this review. These figurines do not warrant exorbitant, hefty premium prices of over $20 each. Personally, I wouldn't even pay more than $4 per each figurine. Now, why do I say that? Well, let me just elaborate. These figurines have sculpts, they have textures, they have shadings, they have hues, they have decos, they have aesthetics, they have details that are not up to par with their Toybiz counterparts. In other words, these figurines can't hold a candle to the less expensive Toybiz Marvel Legends action figures. If you recollect, growing up in the early 2000s, then you know that the Toybiz Marvel Legends action figures retailed for $8 plus tax. They came bundled with a comic book. They came bundled with a piece for a 12-inch Build A Figure. They came bundled with extraordinary, stupendous, stellar accessories. The Build A Figures were just gigantic. They towered over nearly every other figurine. The appendages these figurines come bundled with, the Hasbro Marvel Legends figurines, are just feeble and dainty and petty. This Juggernaut that comprises this wave that you can assemble if you amalgamate all the parts together does not hold a candle against Toybiz Marvel Legends Juggernaut. He doesn't have as many points of articulation. That's besides the point, though. When you look at each figurine individually, you can just tell that they are not up to par with the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines. Now, unfortunately, they lack finger joint articulation. A lot of them have open hands. It's just uncanny, it's awkward, it's out of context. It would be preferable if they had two-fisted hands, or if they had fingers that were semi-clenched together so that they could wield weapons. But these open hands, pre-posed fingers are just unappealing to look at. But if you could get past the lack of finger joint articulation, if you can get past your figurines being devoid of finger joint articulation, there's also other salient issues. These figurines don't have shadings, nor paint applications, nor aesthetics, nor hues, nor highlights, nor features up to par with the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines. They're just not as aesthetically appealing. Their paint washes aren't as aesthetically appealing, if they have any. It's arduous to discern their paint washes from afar, but they just don't tickle my fancy. They don't warrant a $20 price tag. Their accessories aren't painted with a multitude of color schemes. They're just bland, they're generic, they're mundane, they're lackluster. This Juggernaut figurine is not as burly, he's not as sturdy, he's not as hefty, he's not as masculine as he potentially can be. So it's just a letdown, it's disappointing, and induces distraught and dismay when I contemplate about how stellar this wave could have been if Toybiz had not become defunct. So I'm just really agitated and irritated that this wave is anything but meritorious. Now, what do I think about these figurines? I think that these figurines are mediocre at best. I don't like settling for insipid mediocrity, and it's just pitiful and disgraceful, and a real slap in the fan's face, metaphorically speaking, that they cost $20 plus tax, especially considering that the superior versions of these figurines, the Toybiz versions of these figurines retailed for $8 plus tax, and they offered so much more intrinsic and extrinsic value than these figurines. These figurines will likely plunge in price in the pending future, while the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines amplify in price. So essentially, in a nutshell, these figurines just are not as robust, are not as intricate, are not as stellar, are not as appealing, are not as dynamic as the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines. I mean, I'm trying to think of another way to explain it, but if you just buy both of them and you compare and contrast them, then you'll come to the conclusion that the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines are the definitive versions of Cable, Wolverine, Deadpool, Iceman, Phoenix, Havok, Kitty Pryde, and Rogue. So these 9 figures that include the Juggernaut are just not worse. A grand total of $160 plus tax. So if you buy them in the retail stores, they'll be closer to $180, presuming that the sales tax rate is close to 10%. Well, if it's close to 10%, then they'll be closer to $176. But it will cost you more than that, because you have to factor in the opportunity cost. You have to factor in the depreciation incurred amid driving there in terms of the car's depreciation, and then you have to factor in the gas mileage. Costs a small fortune to expend gas and to run that exhaust pipe amid driving to the retail stores and during your escapades when you deplete valuable gas. So I mean, there's other costs to consider and factor in, but if you get them online, you can expect to spend at least $160, especially if you pre-order them. I'd presume that you would be spending more, but they're just not worth the price. They're just inferior to the Toybiz Marvel Legends action figures of these characters. So these incarnations of figurines that have already been released are just inferior in terms of their sculpts, in terms of their deco, in terms of their hues, in terms of their shadings, in terms of their textures, in terms of their accessories, in terms of their points of articulation. They lack finger joint articulation. They don't have as many points of articulation as Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines. The Build A Figurine that the Hasbro Marvel Legends action figures are bundled with is just underwhelming. He's overshadowed by the Toybiz Marvel Legends Build A Figures that trump and supersede this Juggernaut figurine in nearly every single facet. I mean, I'm disappointed. The Juggernaut's head is minute. I mean, I have gripes. I have qualms about contemplating about buying this lot, but I wouldn't splurge on buying this lot for over $45. The only figurine that has a modicum of merit in this lot is Rogue, because she's a superior face sculpt, in my opinion, when compared to the Toybiz Marvel Legends iteration of Rogue. So I also am fond of the fact that Rogue has two-fisted hands. So based on what I could discern here, it seems as though the only figurine that actually is worthwhile in certain aspects is Rogue, but I think that the Toybiz Marvel Legends Rogue offers far more intrinsic value because she has finger joint articulation, and that makes a huge difference. She also likely has more points of articulation, but these figurines are not lacking in articulation necessarily, but they're just not up to par with the Toybiz Marvel Legends figurines in terms of articulation. I recollect the Juggernaut figurine having anywhere from 36 to 42 points of articulation, somewhere within that range. So this Juggernaut is just going to be underwhelming in terms of articulation, and in terms of stature, and in terms of sturdiness, and in terms of heftiness. and in terms of masculinity, and in terms of bulkiness. I mean, he's not as burly as he potentially could be. He does have physical prowess. He does have defined muscle tones. He does have hard abs. He has large biceps, but I feel as though he would have been a superior figurine if he was just larger and more menacing and more intimidating and more dominant. But those are just my personal opinions. But I have to view everything from an objective standpoint, and objectively speaking, when you factor in the notion or the possibility of being able to buy these figurines for $8, I'm insinuating the Toybiz figurines when I say these figurines, so let me just revamp that. When you factor in the prospect of being able to buy the Toybiz iterations of these characters for $8 versus buying the Hasbro versions of these characters for over $20 is just not comparable, and as a totality, as a lot, these figurines are just not worthwhile for $160. So for over $160, for $176, I would rate this lot to be 1 out of 10, because in the past you could have bought all these figurines or superior versions of these characters for a grand total of $64 plus tax, because 8 times 8 is equivalent to 64. So for a bit over $70 when you factor in the sales tax, you got far more value for your money. You got 8 comics, you got appendages to a massive superior Build-A-Figure, you got superior accessories with a multitude of paint applications, you got iterations of these characters with superior shadings, with superior decos, with superior sculpts, with finger joint articulation, with more points of articulation, with better hues that were visually more appealing, and that truly had more intrinsic value in every facet. So I guess only one in this lot that's somewhat decent is Rogue. I just don't like Kitty Pryde with open, and I don't like her facial expression. The Deadpool figurine is not comparable to the Marvel Legends Series 6 Deadpool. He just looks too bland and generic. I would have preferred if he had more shadings. The Cable outfit just looks generic and bland and lackluster. The Iceman figurine is just mostly translucent. He could have used a multitude of colossal spikes protruding out of his back to really accentuate his icicle capabilities, or his abilities to materialize ice. The icicles or the crystals protruding out of his back just seem to be relatively meek and scrawny and underwhelming. The Phoenix figurine just looks mediocre. She has an open hand, which I don't like. Her belt is also conspicuous. It's likely unremovable, so you likely can't detach it. The Havok figure, I guess, is okay. It looks like a reused mold. The Wolverine figure seems to be a reused mold that was slightly modified. And this lot is just disappointing. So at best, I'd rate it to be a 1 out of 10, considering that you could have got all these figurines, superior versions of these figurines, for $64 plus tax, if you were able to stumble upon them in the retail stores when they were released before Toybiz became defunct. Thanks for watching. I hope that you found this video to be insightful and enthralling. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Goodbye.